So, welcome to NEXPO Fall 2021. Round of applause for everyone just being here tonight. Thank you so much. My name is Lucas Espada, and I am the 12th Alschuler-Meyer CEO of IDEA. Does anybody know what Does anybody know what IDEA stands for? Physically, the letters IDEA. Nice. Does anybody, let me rephrase that. Who here thought that IDEA was just written in all caps and it didn't actually mean anything? Me too. For a long time here at Northeastern, but I came to learn that IDEA stands for Interdisciplinary Entrepreneurial Accelerator, and that's what we do here at Northeastern. For 12 years, we've been entirely student-run, operating out of a lab in the basement of Hayden Hall, taking student ideas and turning them into reality. IDEA, while it stands the letters physically for something, our motto, our brand, everything that we are stands for education and opportunity. Tonight, you're going to see both of those. Education for not only the ventures here on stage, the investors coming in the audience, but for you as well. Maybe you're looking to start a business. Maybe you have one and want to raise a round of financing. Maybe you just want to see something fun. Tonight, we hope to provide all of it. This year for us, and tonight at NEXPO, is a celebration of dreams, opportunities, but it's also a night of firsts. This year's NEXPO, while traditionally functions as a celebration of entrepreneurship at Northeastern, tonight we wanted to take that celebration and turn it into an opportunity to take a dream to the next level. IDEA traditionally functions in a three-stage process. Ready, where we focus on problem solving. What problem exists, and are you tackling the right one? Once you figure that out, you move into our set stage. Ready, set. Set is about solution design, making sure that the problem you're tackling fits with the solution that you want to solve. A lot of times people say, oh, I want to create a website, or I want to create an app, without actually diving into the problem that they're solving. Set is about realizing what that right solution looks like. And go. Once you've identified the problem, figured out your solution, let's get into market. Let's get customers. Let's raise money. Tonight, you're seeing 4 Go stage ventures that have not only made it through our entire process, but have also been previously funded by IDEA. In the Go stage, ventures can receive up to $10,000 in 3 non-equity grants for a total of $30,000. Each of these ventures have received those grants and are looking to raise their next round of financing. Tonight, you're seeing what dreams may happen and what opportunities may come next. The vision with NEXPITCH this year is to not only take those ventures who have made it through our 3 stages, but help them graduate our program. To get launched out of IDEA, a venture must raise up to $200,000 in external financing or become self-sustaining on revenue. Whereas traditionally that process has been largely self-serving, tonight we're providing a stage for it to happen live. NEXPO is a celebration of entrepreneurial dreams, and tonight, those dreams might come true. This year's NEXPO is a lot of firsts. It's the first hybrid NEXPO in response and from learnings from COVID. These past year and a half have taught us that we can do anything with anyone across any boundaries, and so we've taken that step with NEXPO. Out there in the atrium, you'll see some ventures from IDEA, Mosaic, which is the larger entrepreneurial ecosystem here at Northeastern, and for the first time, another first, ventures outside of Northeastern from Babson and Boston College. This is in an effort for us to expand our entrepreneurial education beyond the walls of Northeastern. Another first is the food that's being catered at NEXPO. NEXPO has always been a traditionally catered event from some of our favorite food places in the Boston area. This year, rather than doing that, we looked internally, and everything except the water has been fully provided, catered, and made by an IDEA venture. From the granola to the chocolate milk to the coffee bars, everything has been created by an IDEA venture. And the last first, the reason why you're all in this auditorium right now, the first NEXPITCH. This is the opportunity that ventures have been looking for to get that financing that they want. And tonight, you're going to hear from 4 distinct ventures in 4 distinct industries. Whether it's seafood, or hospitality, or engineering, or body care. Each of these ventures, each of these founders have their unique story and will be pitching to a unique panel of investors. Tonight's pitch isn't like traditional pitch competitions that you may have seen. In fact, it's not a competition at all. Each of these ventures can come up here and all can walk away with something, or maybe none. Tonight is a night about opportunity, and what the ventures make of it, well, that'll be up to them. Next pitch is about providing a stage for dreams to come true. And the investors here tonight, hopefully, can help make that happen. A disclaimer about Next Pitch. All conversations that you hear tonight with investors, all potential commitment of investment is not final. Investment usually takes anywhere from several weeks to several months. And tonight you're seeing the first conversation. On average, it takes a founder 59 emails to get 1 phone call from a potential investor. Here at Next Pitch, we're skipping all of that and going right to 1. This process, while it takes months, again, tonight you may hear some sort of commitment, some sort of conversation. Just know that this isn't final, and due diligence must be conducted by all the venture firms that are here tonight. That being said, without further ado, let's pitch. Our first investor, Alston Thomas, is a friend of Northeastern and Mosaic. Alston is a co-founder and partner. You can walk on out. Thank you. Alston is a co-founder and partner at Huntington Avenue Ventures, an early-stage fund that focuses on investment in solely Northeastern founders. Alston has had careers in blockchain, venture investment, and other forms of asset management, which has led his interest to be here tonight. Alston will be graduating from Northeastern University in just over a month in December of 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, Alston Thomas. Our next investor, Kyle Dolce. Kyle Dolce is an investment analyst at Glasswing Ventures. Prior to Glasswing, Kyle worked in one of Glasswing's portfolio companies, where he got to be an operations strategist, helping make important financial decisions for where he was placed. Tonight, Kyle will be helping make decisions on the panel whether or not these ventures are ready for next steps. Kyle is coming back to Northeastern tonight as an alumni, magna cum laude, member of the Huntington 100, Bostino 25 under 25, and our past venture director. Please welcome back Kyle Dolce. Next up is Emily Bott. Emily is a senior associate at Pillar VC. Pillar is an early-stage fund in Boston focused on early-stage startups, working with founders closely to turn their dreams into realities. Emily is also a Northeastern alum with a BS in physics and a master's in science of engineering from Harvard, as well as an MBA, also from Harvard. While at Pillar, Emily helps make important decisions for where companies will go and oversees the process. Emily has a career in product management, where she got to see startups go from 0 to 1, some of the hardest steps out there. She's worked at Kayak and Google, making important decisions for privacy that impact billions. Tonight, please help me welcome Emily Bott. And lastly, Zach Kukoff. Zach is representing General Catalyst. Zach is representing General Catalyst, another early-stage fund here in Boston. Zach has had experiences working both in early-stage startups as well as some companies with over 500 employees, teaching him the values of hard work, management, but also learning how to grind. Zach got interested in the venture field when going through this process himself. And outside of this, has interest in making an impact in other places of the world, particularly in autism awareness. Zach is here with us tonight as a principal from General Catalyst, hoping to make decisions and conversations go a little further than where they started. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our investors for NEXPITCH. Now for the pitching. We'll start with pre-seed pitching. These asks are going to be between $0 and $500,000 to take these companies where they hope can be the next step for them. Pre-seed pitching is all about going from that little instinct that you have to start a company and going into the real world, starting to make an impact. Each of these ventures will have 5 to 7 minutes to share their piece, and then 10 to 12 just to talk with investors, have an open dialogue about what they're working on. Tonight, our first venture is John Pollak. John is here representing Oyster Common. If you've ever had seafood, you may be wondering why it tastes so good. You may be wondering where it came from, but what most people don't wonder is how it got to your table. The seafood industry, and particularly with oysters, is one of the hardest industries to maintain from a technological standpoint. John, having experience in this industry and a passion for seafood, thought that this was a problem that needed solving. And tonight, he's going to tell you how to do it. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome John Pollak.
No? Good, excellent. Let's see, how does this thing work? All right, thank you, Lucas, and thank you to the whole IDEA community. I can safely say that I would not be up here. Oyster Common would not still be in business if it was not for IDEA, so I really appreciate that, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you guys today. So my name is John Pollak. I am the founder and CEO of a company called Oyster Common, and I'm going to be discussing our product that we are calling Cast. Any foodies out here tonight? Yeah, I like it. VCs are foodies. I like that. I'm a little bit of a foodie too, and in particular, I really like restaurants that are farm-to-table concepts, and especially with seafood. I like to know where my seafood's coming from. Some characteristics about farm-to-table food that really, to me, makes it special. Peak freshness, right? You're getting it directly from the source. It's often a limited availability. A lot of times that has to do with seasonal availability. And then also, those products are often local, so they're often being produced right in your backyard. And so for people like me that really value that, it's a huge opportunity for restaurants to get a higher margin sale on their restaurant dishes. But it's really hard to do that and do it well. This gentleman right here is Michael Leviton. Michael is a visionary farm-to-table chef who operated a restaurant out in Newton from 1999 to something like 2017, 2018. A lot of awards in those times, recognized by Food and Wine, nominated for a James Beard Award about half of those years. So he really knows what he's talking about. And I had the opportunity to have lunch with Michael at Mamalay's in Kendall a few weeks ago. Great spot if you haven't been there. That's an aside. And Michael and I started talking. I asked Michael, what would it take to get you back in the restaurant game? And he looked at me and he said, I would need to get an investor that's willing to take a write-off on the restaurant. He needs an investor that's willing to just take a loss on the restaurant because the way that he wants to do things just is too expensive. And a big piece of that is sourcing food. So Michael wants to go farm to table for all of his products. The problem is that can take up to 2 hours a day. And that takes 2 hours a day really for two reasons, discovery and friction. It's hard to find farm-to-table products from so many vendors. And then friction, it's hard for those vendors to provide an adequate selling experience, really. You're talking about faxed orders, you're talking about phone orders, you're talking about text orders, you're talking about e-commerce platforms. And it's hard for the chef to navigate all those. And so what we're doing is we're building a text message-based virtual assistant for food procurement, and starting with seafood, as Lucas mentioned. And the way that works is a chef texts an inquiry or a purchase to our platform. Our natural language processing application determines the intent of that message and responds accordingly. Now, when that chef is ready to actually make a purchase, our NLP app can create a purchase order that goes directly to the food producer, excuse me. And at that point, it's their responsibility to fulfill the order either through their own means, like a pickup from their location or a delivery with their own vehicle, or they can also leverage our integrated FedEx, our FedEx integration. And so what we're doing here is rather than taking weeks potentially for the food to get to the restaurant, it's taking 24 to 48 hours of the traceable known whereabouts. And so what we've done so far is we've built a prototype, and that includes an e-commerce system that's actually functional, as well as a natural language processing application prototype. So that's for demonstration uses right now. We actually have a wait list of folks that are excited to use this platform, which includes oyster farms, other seafood producers, 13 chefs that represent 50 restaurants across the country. We've run 2 pilots, so I mentioned that e-commerce platform is fully working, and we've run pilots both near, over in East Boston, as well as far, which is Jack's, located in Denver, Colorado, which I'll talk about in a minute a little bit more. And so where we are now is to raise our pre-seed round so that we can launch this SMS-based platform in the way that we envision it. I thought I had another slide here, but I guess not. But why start with American seafood? It's a tremendous market opportunity. The first is the fit, and that's the small family-owned businesses that really get beat up by traditional distributors getting their product to market. And second, it's a $5 billion opportunity and growing. And so that is American-produced seafood is a $5 billion opportunity, and it's nested within a gigantic $6 trillion American food market. So this is the slide that I thought I was going to get to earlier. This is our ongoing pilot right now, Chef Sheila Lucero out in Denver. And she's the culinary director of Jack's Fish House and Oyster Bar, which has 6 locations in Denver, in and around Denver. And we've been shipping a box of 200 oysters to her per week, which is giving us about a monthly revenue of $1,200. And those oysters, I should say, are coming from Maine to Denver. And so what we really feel like our advantage is relative to our competition is that we are the preferred ordering method. So compared to a regular food distributor who buys and resells products, typically you're placing an order either through an online platform or over the phone. We are optimizing purchasing by location. And then once we have those preferences set up, we can continually automate that purchasing. And so that's what we did with Sheila. We basically figured out a product that she liked and wanted weekly, and then we just set it up so she gets that box of 200 oysters weekly unless she says otherwise. So our competition, the resellers, the distributors on the right are kind of the entrenched big companies. They typically buy and resell goods. The marketplaces on the right there, I guess on my left, your right, are marketplaces that are typically using vendors, connecting vendors to buyers with platforms. And so we really believe that now is the time to disrupt this industry for 3 reasons. 1, consumer preference. People at all socioeconomic levels are willing to pay more for local foods. 2, the technologies are making this easier. So digital technologies and AI are making supply chain easier from end to end. And 3, impact. For us, those are the 4 UN Sustainable Development Goals that we are really tying our mission to. And I should mention that there are over 330 million pounds of seafood that perish in the supply chain each year. And that's a problem that we can contribute to solving. We have a great team. In addition to myself, I founded this company with Nick, a childhood friend. We grew up in New Hampshire, loving Maine and seafood. Michael, who I mentioned earlier, is actually on our team. Larry's developed most of our technology to date. Lauren is our corporate sustainability expert. We have some great buy-in support from the organizations you see up there, including Northeastern's Venture Mentor Network, getting some great advice from legal advice from the folks at Goodwin. And so what our ask tonight is for a $300,000 pre-seed round, and where we think that can get us is to diversify our product catalog from just oysters to at least 5 seafood products. In a year, we can have 100 restaurants ordering weekly from our platform, and that weekly transaction amount is going to be about $50,000. And so the spend out of that is primarily product development, but some operations and marketing as well. And at this point, I'll just say thank you one more time to IDEA, as well as everyone here tonight. I should also thank, in addition to IDEA, these other great programs that we've had the privilege of being a part of. And so now I'll take your questions. Thank you. Oh yeah, awesome.
John, thanks again for pitching. It's been amazing to see how much progress you've made. I think the last time we talked was like a year ago.
Absolutely.
To see everything from like the branding and messaging to this virtual assistant, and just your traction. Congrats. Could you dive a little deeper into your revenue, how you're pricing the platform, and what that looks like?
Yeah, so right now we're dealing with primarily oysters, and for us that means that a restaurant's going to end up selling that product for about $3 a piece. So we're targeting to get oysters anywhere within the United States to $1.50 with the shipping including. Folks are typically paying about $1 per oyster, so that is a little bit more expensive, but it's also giving them a fresher product. So going from Maine to Denver, that's about, with the product included, that's about $330, maybe $350, and so that's where I'm getting that revenue number for that I mentioned. Beyond that, what we're targeting, for us to actually make money and not just revenue is a 4 to 7% rake. So that's really the target that we're shooting for, is to take a fee on the transaction. And then kind of secondary, what we've thought about is whether there's also room to charge subscription fees. And the more likely, in my mind, is for the seller side, because the service that we're giving them is the access to the market.
Can you talk a little bit about what, I don't know if this is on, by the way. Okay. Can you talk a little bit about what you've built for the sellers themselves and what software you're building for them?
Yeah.
And then also maybe a little bit about how you beat the marketplaces, because I think unless I missed it, I think we kind of breezed through it a little bit.
Yeah, no, sorry, and I did get a little bit, I thought my slides were in a different order, so that's what happened there. But yeah, so as far as the marketplaces are concerned, those are the ones that I mentioned up there are very open marketplaces, right? You go on and you find your own product. What we're trying to find a balance between is some of the, I'll say, white glove treatment from the distributors, as well as the technology where you can go on and access it anytime. So we are not an open marketplace. We're more of a managed marketplace. And so to us, that's a big differentiating factor, because we can basically provide expert guidance by location. And so that was the marketplace. What was the firit part of your question?
The question was, what do you have to build for sellers to be able
Yeah. Thank you. That's a great question, obviously. So what we have built for sellers is, and it works right now specifically for oyster farms. It doesn't work for other product types, but we can go in, we place an order, they get a really nice product purchase order. And that purchase order actually includes a FedEx slip. So all they have to do is print that slip, slap it on the box, then actually the FedEx pickup is scheduled too. So literally they just have to slap it on the box and it goes out the door. We've experimented with some other workflow tools, but to us, kind of the major thing right now is to diversify our product selection so that we satisfy the other side of our marketplace with the chefs.
And if I can jump in on the diversifying product selection.
Yeah.
So I am not an oyster farmer, nor am I a beef farmer, but help me understand kind of what is the interoperability of the platform in terms of the needs of someone who is a farmer of one product versus another. And I imagine the end goal is to provide a very, everything a restaurant can possibly want to order. So what are the changes that have to happen to the product? What are the needs of different customers on the seller end?
Yeah, to us, it's honestly, it's a lesson learned. We started this thinking that we were going to be more of a Shopify for oyster farmers, and so we actually did build some workflow tools specific to oyster farms, and we need to disambiguate our platform a little bit from that, but also make the platform a little bit smarter in the way that we predict FedEx costs. So that to me is the big problem. We made a decision of how we would estimate FedEx shipping costs, and that as we diversify products is not the right way. So we have to basically go back and fine tune that a little bit. But to me, it's probably a month to 2 months of work. It's really not that much.
Totally. And on the restaurant side, obviously we've spoken about Glasswing. Glasswing's an AI investor. What role does artificial intelligence, natural language understanding, how sophisticated does this have to be to actually be a tool where I can say, hey, this week I want to get all my stuff from Oyster Common, or maybe rebranding when you're doing lots of different food?
Yeah, no, another great question. And to me, what's so powerful about this concept is that the barriers to these technologies have come down. So, that's a good thing for us in that we can build this tool out. It's obviously can be a challenge building a competitive moat as well. But in terms of applying the AI to this problem, we chose this because we feel it's the right fit. I didn't set out to build a chatbot. What I found is that the chefs prefer text message-based ordering. So to me, that was the first part. And then we started thinking about, okay, how are we going to optimize by location? Well, we can do that with spatial queries on the back end. If we don't include a human on the loop, we can basically include spatial queries. And at that point, it may or may not include some more advanced machine learning technique. It probably won't at first, but that's another place where AI can kind of play a role for us. But to me, it really is just the user interface.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm happy to I know we've talked previously, but maybe we can set up a time to kind of just bounce ideas in terms of.
I'd love that. I appreciate that, Kyle. Thank you very much.
Let's do it.
I'm going to back up on one thread you brought up earlier. I'm curious, as you think about building out the marketplace itself, and maybe I misunderstood, it sounds like you're trying to go a little bit broad on geo, a little bit broad on different types of products. Can you just help me understand, what's the thinking behind going broad versus going deep and saying, hey, we're going to own Oysters, we're going to own Boston? Help me kind of understand the concept.
No, absolutely great question, and as you might imagine, one that we've danced with a little bit. To me, what the really powerful opportunity here, given our team concept, our team, the people we have on our team, excuse me. Michael significantly lowers the cost of customer acquisition for us because he can write one email and reach 10 chefs across the country that have been nominated for James Beard Awards, or pick your accolade. And so to me, what I think the most effective go-to-market strategy is going to be is to look at high-profile chefs like that in the Northeast and Midwest, where it's either in our backyard or the supplier's backyard, or it's hard to get fresh seafood to. And we start with those high-profile chefs, and we basically kind of look at it a cohort approach, where we want to win the senior chefs, and then as the junior staff in those restaurants go out and start their own things, then we've won those people too because they've been trained up on our product already. So to me, it has to do with the profile of the chef more than anything else.
That makes sense. And do most of those chefs already have preferred suppliers?
Oh yeah, I mean these people, right? You don't open up a restaurant without knowing what you're doing. Especially you don't open up a seafood restaurant in the middle of the country without having a good seafood provider because you're setting yourself up for a little bit of failure. So again, the difficult thing for us there is that we have to displace somebody that likely has a good positioning. But the good thing for us, right, is if we are successful in doing that, is that relationship is relatively sticky. Emily, you haven't said anything yet.
Okay, can you hear me? Great job, John. I also grew up in New Hampshire and Maine and love seafood and oysters. I was hoping to dive in on the marketplace dynamics a bit. So I thought the ratio of customers to suppliers was really interesting. You said there were 13 chefs to 7 suppliers. Is that representative of how they operate today? Like, a given restaurant would order from how many suppliers in a week?
Yeah, so a typical farm-to-table restaurant, you could be looking at anywhere from 5 to 10 to maybe even more vendors. There's a trade-off there between moving back into the supply chain, using more of your time to work with more people, versus basically being satisfied with the end of the supply chain with Cisco, working with one person, but knowing the food has kind of traveled through so many hands of change.
And what do they do when something goes wrong at the last minute and they need an expedited order?
Yeah, that's another great question. As you can imagine, that's a huge problem for the restaurant. And what happens that in that situation, right? The good distributors will fix it no matter what, right? So they'll drive out. Jimmy's been selling somebody oysters for 12 years. He's going to drive the car out there to make it right. It's that kind of relationship. And so for us, what that means for us is we need to be able to set expectations properly, both on both sides of our marketplace, basically. And then, for us, there's no reason why there can't be same-day orders. Like if I'm in Boston and I want to order oysters from Chatham, if I order by 12, they should probably be able to get there by 6. And so that just, that takes the buy-in, and that takes the people willing to do the delivery routes right now.
I think in traditional e-commerce, maybe order fulfillment, expedites can get like 100% plus.
Yeah.
What kind of markup are you looking at for something like that?
So we haven't actually even thought that through quite yet. But like I said, we're targeting 4 to 7%. Where we get that number is, especially with oyster farms, we know that an oyster farm can sell their product for 15% more when they're selling direct, and that, that 15% more actually accounts for more shipping materials as well as the extra labor it takes to pack the orders up.
Yeah, I imagine dry ice is probably a big part of your.
Yeah, so it's not dry ice, but it's like it's gel packs. Yeah.
Thank you.
What happens now? Bring back the man with the outfit.
In case you just got here, this is NEXPITCH, and particularly the pre-seed portion of NEXPITCH. On stage next, we're going to have Yewande, Masi. Pre-seed NEXPITCH is all about raising anywhere from $0 to $500,000 after already having been funded anywhere from $0 to $30,000 by idea. These founders are looking to take the next step in their dream of changing the world. So for this next venture, I'd like to ask, how many of you have ever flown before? Wow. Pretty much everyone. What strikes me interesting about flying is the safety presentation at the beginning of every flight. When you sit down and the flight attendant walks down the middle aisle, the masks presentation, the lifeboat presentation, what always stuck out to me was that the first thing they said when the plane was going down is to put your mask on first before helping those around you. I remember the first time I heard that as a kid. That was really interesting because everybody always talks about help others around you, prioritize those around you. But what that little demonstration did for me is spark the idea that you can't help those around you unless you're taking care of yourself first. Mental health, body care, sustainability, these things which drive us and power us are the lifeblood of humans. And unless we prioritize our own health before we do anything else, we're not going to be able to function. The problem with that is the current healthcare industry, the current body care industry as it stands, doesn't necessarily prioritize that. It's quite segmented. There's not a lot of focus on non-toxic chemicals, and we lose the idea of taking care of ourselves in an industry that's all about self-care. Tonight, we're going to hear from Yewande and Ornami changing that industry as it stands and hoping to revolutionize body care. Ladies and gentlemen, Yewande Masi.
Thank you. All right, so can you hear me? Hello, everyone. All right, my name is Yewande Masi, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Ornami Skincare. I'm going to start by talking to you about my love-hate relationship with skincare. See, Ornami was really founded with love. It started with my then boyfriend's trip to West Africa. He picked up some shea butter and was complaining, which is why we're not together anymore, but a little bit about that later, about how hard it was to use. And that got me thinking when I came back to Boston, how can I make his life easier? So I started doing some research and just, whipping up my own concoction in the kitchen. That's when my friend came over. She's actually a Northeastern alum, and she's here today. And she's like, what are you doing? And can I try that? And then she asked to buy it, and she doesn't pay for anything. So the fact that she wanted to buy it let me know that there's something to this, right? And then I bought the body butter to work, and I bought it in front of the deli market, and they kept purchasing and purchasing and purchasing. And this kind of is where my passion started. Fast forward to 9 months later, me and my boyfriend broke up. There's no surprise to anybody. But anyway, I was able to just use my bathroom as my retreat. And that's when I noticed that my body wash and my lotion, they're not the same brand. How many of you guys use the same brand of body care? We don't pay attention to our body, even though we have way more skin the way we do our face. It's really broken. And that's where the hate relationship comes in. Now, I'm not going to say any names, but we can take a guess where this aisle is. This is body care. The body care market is fragmented, it's toxic, it's wasteful, and it lacks innovation. It currently neglects a prime opportunity to help customers create personal care routines. These are what the numbers say. 32% of Americans want to find ways to reduce their carbon emission, but they have no idea how to. Women slather 186 chemicals on their body every day. They're linked to hormone disruptors, cancer, and infertility. 120 billion units of packaging are produced globally every year by the cosmetics industry, which contributes to a loss of 18 million acres of forest annually. 80% of people intend to be more mindful of self-care practices post-pandemic. So here's where we come in. We make body care sustainable. And this is not sustainable when I'm talking about just the packaging, but sustainable for routines. How do we do it? We have a uniquely guilt-free body care experience. Holistic products that are not just for your body, but actually have wellness benefits. They're clean, toxin-free to yourself, as well as the environment, and sustainable packaging, which is plastic that can be recycled, and some other things that I'm going to talk about in the future. Now, we've experienced some of the challenges with supply chain, et cetera, and throughout that, we were able to have repurchasing rate of 32%, which is almost double the industry average. We're really close with our customer, and we actually present ourselves as a friend. And by doing that, we're able to crowdsource new products that they ask for. We have an average industry rating of 4.9, and that's across our website and Amazon. Let's look at the skincare market opportunity. Everybody knows there's a new celebrity launching a skincare brand out there, which means that it's a very lucrative market. $5 billion is the total addressable market that we're looking at for natural body care, or for the natural body care industry. Body care at the moment is growing at an 8.8%, which is surpassing skincare at 7.9%. Since last year, there was a $44 million year-over-year change for do-it-yourself and self-care products. 58% of women shop clean beauty, and that's growing at a similar trend as natural foods, as we saw natural foods about a decade ago. And right now, there is a growing visibility for Black-owned brands. Retailers have actually committed to 15% shelf space for Black-owned beauty brands. So when I look at competitors, I don't just look at existing competitors. I think about the steel market, right? It wasn't steel that, they weren't broken down by other steel. They were broken down by shoes, et cetera. So I look at who could potentially eat up our market share. If you look at the bottom, we're looking at product overlap from low to high, and then market overlap from low to high as well. So someone like Bite, who is working with sustainable toothpaste, while they're not in our market, we have to be very innovative and pay attention to them, right? But then we look at someone like Shea Moisture, who shares a similar product and market. However, they would be cannibalizing their own business, which would be a benefit for us. So our innovation is actually what is our strength and makes us defensible. In addition, it makes us particularly attractive for an acquisition in the future. So speaking of innovation and listening to our customers, we had a very distraught customer who was upset with TSA for throwing out their products. I'm sure all of you can recognize that experience. And this is when we started thinking a little bit differently. And right now we're working on an upcoming launch for a complete body care set, which is water-free. 90% of body wash contains water. Ours contains 0%. Water is a very, very precious resource. If you're looking at sustainability, it's not just about the packaging. It's about the fact that instead of them using 4 bottles of body wash, we will give them 1. That's a 75% reduction in waste. It's flexible. Gone are the days of you throwing your packages away or running to CVS or Walgreens, which is wasting time to get your travel size, which is again wasteful. You can take this with you. It integrates to home and travel and make it easy to maintain a routine. And then our formulation is our trade secret. It has wellness benefits that double as self-care. This is the team behind Ornami. They believe in this vision. We also have connections with our partners, skincare consultants. We're working with estheticians, dermatologists, as well as chemists, and they believe in this vision, as well as our legal representation to protect and our communications. Here is the ask. We're asking for $300,000 to sell 5,000 units of each of the new water-free SKU. This is going to return $490,000 in sales, and it's going to be to grow our team, product development, manufacturing, marketing, and retail partnerships for that 15% shelf space. Thank you for your time and attention. Now let's make body care sustainable.
Thanks for presenting this. It was really great learning about Ornami.
Thank you.
I have a question on what it was like manufacturing it. How did it transition from you creating it at home to what it's like now? Are you? I'm assuming you're manufacturing it at a facility, or what's that like?
Yeah, that was really a result of the partnership I had with a skincare consultant, specifically who works in with toxic-free brands, and she was able to leverage a couple of different introductions. And I met with someone, and then we maintained a contract in which I retained the formulation. And so she does the formulation as well as the co-manufacturing.
Got it. And what does product development look like in the future?
Well, that's the thing about body care, which is pretty amazing. We have a few things as far as tools, complementary tools, specifically for people to maintain their routines on the road. And I actually have things out until 2024 at the moment. So there's other body care things as well that I can't speak about at the moment. It's really exciting.
Obviously, the relationship you guys have built with your customers is super impressive. Can you talk to us a little bit about, it's a crowded space, it's a crowded field. There's a lot of folks who are trying to do sustainable or sort of better for your body care. And so help us understand how you stand out among sort of the field and maybe educate us a little bit about how you've done that so far and what you're going to do going forward.
Yeah, I would say one of the biggest things is that we're really big about going deep and just really focusing on being super niche. I'm very hands-on. The customers know when, you know, I'm in it. If they didn't receive something, there's just that touch. And then we always have touch points to ask them what is going well, what would you like to see? That's the big thing. I would say our biggest seller was a result of a crowdsourced product. So we just listen to our customers, and the fact that we have 32% retention, we can actually grow the average order value and continue to grow upon that. Do you know what I mean? So that's really where it comes from.
And how do you think about growing the niche over time or growing sort of net new folks entering top of funnel for you guys?
I would say that this can go into other, so, you know, as far as like even our protection, we have it in other classes as well. So it's something that actually can be spread into other fields. So.
Thanks, Yewande. This is fantastic. I have a couple questions about your formulation. Share what you can, but I think that the definition of non-toxic is a tricky one because almost any ingredient at a certain quantity could be toxic, including something like water. So in this field that's not strictly regulated, how do you manage adhering to customer expectation, but also doing something cutting edge and making sure that the customers understand what they're getting?
One of the biggest things I would say is testing. So I can even say something like our fragrance. Even though we received it, it was non-toxic, et cetera, we tested our fragrance, and that's when we found out that it actually was. So you have to make sure that to actually change it. You have to make sure that you're testing with third parties, et cetera, and that there's a specific definition that you're adhering to make sure that this is natural based upon this standard, et cetera, clean by Sephora.
Okay, great segue. Are you thinking about staying direct to consumer or going into physical retailers or online stores?
At the moment, we're just going to go direct to consumer because I really want to understand our customer much better. Like the better we can understand our customer, then when we get on shelves, it's easier to acquire them. But there is plan, hopefully, to do that in the future.
I imagine that free samples are a big part of marketing in this industry. How do you think about that, and how do you build that into your cost?
Yeah, definitely. So we actually, that's part of some of the marketing, having samples going out to media. We actually went to a Lux Pack Co., which is for packaging, and they actually have, we met with different vendors on how to have some samples and how many was the minimum order quantity, et cetera. But that's definitely part of it.
Just to build on that question, how do most of your customers discover you?
From social media and from, they're actually recommended. So that's like the best way that they discover us.
Could you actually expand on that media strategy? I know this is a space where I think every kind of wellness care product I ever done, it was because a website told me to. So I'd love to understand kind of what is your media strategy. There are channels that you've found particularly successful so far.
Believe it or not, Facebook is actually really successful, more so than Instagram. And we also have a lot of media coverage, which is validating our brand in, to the general public. And people find that to be that's generally how they found us.
And how do you go about getting that media coverage in terms of, I saw you have a content creator, and I know there are a lot of I can see this being kind of a land grab of getting as many media coverage, inbound LinkedIn messages to people as much as possible and try to get in these publications. So how do you focus in on the ones that are most interesting to you, most interesting to your potential customers, and kind of discover new channels as well?
Well, it has to overlap with, our vision and our values first and foremost. So if it doesn't overlap, then we're going to say no, but there's also been a more heightened visibility for Black brands. So a lot of times just pitching, hey, we want, you do need someone. And then that's how we've gotten a lot of things in addition to Seven Hills Communication, which is a partner of ours.
That's awesome to see. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. I was getting the signal of one last question, which I think I will start with. I'd love to kind of dig into this defensibility element. I think kind of I find Sephora's type stores or Ulta utterly overwhelming. So how do you keep this kind of product differentiated from similar competitors or people who try to act like they're similar competitors and do this at scale as well? Because right now you're amazing at telling us why this product's differentiated.
Right.
But I'm curious, how does that scale in a lot of ways?
I think a lot of it is creating an experience. You can do pop-up stores, for example. Something I've thought about is having a pop-up store that feels like like a gate that you're boarding. And do you know what I'm saying? Because those are the things that stick with people, the experiences, right? And they can see you can see that person taking out their stuff out of TSA. Why did you take my $50 body wash? That's very upsetting. So that's what sticks to people because they feel that fear, they feel that emotion. So to me, doing those things, getting pop-up shops across the nation, and that's how you get a stickier customer than those quick flash in the pan gimmicks that are out there.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Thanks.
For the next portion of Next Pitch, we'll be moving into seed pitching. These are going to be asks between $500,000 and $2 million. These ventures, some have raised previous financing, others are looking to take a courageous big step into taking their business to the next level. For our first venture, we have Steven. If you've ever used a modern-day computer or Mac, you'll know that it's extremely intuitive. You can go on and figure out how to use it within minutes. But years ago, in the 1970s, 1960s, that was nearly impossible. And some might equate it to the phrase, you have to be a rocket scientist to know how to use a computer. Thankfully, today, we don't. But the same case isn't true for engineering. And the same case isn't true for product development. In many cases, there's a massive learning curve, and you either have to have a master's in physics or an extreme understanding of mathematics to even learn how to use the software to build products. Today, We're hearing from a founder tackling this issue head on in a way that he believes can change the engineering development industry. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Steven with Parallel Pipes.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Steve Karasek, and as Lucas just said, I'm the founder and CEO of Parallel Pipes. Physical product development has had few major innovations in the past 20 plus years. Tools are expensive and hard to use, and companies need to find experienced engineers in not only design, but simulation as well. Usually people get around this by just over-engineering their solutions, which is very ironically costly, time-consuming, and less effective than the alternatives. One example is what you see to the right of the screen. To ensure that these blades won't hit each other when bending or vibrating and moving, one solution I've seen done is reducing the number of blades, their width, and their length, which makes the propeller at large less effective. Our solution can help a team not only save a lot of time and money, but help them produce a better product than they would be able to normally. Instead of putting all of your top engineers on a project, you can supplement that raw experience with Parallel Pipes. I found it's best usually just to speak about our successes rather than explain outright what we do. Our biggest customer success so far has been with Right One. So they build electric turbines. Their first job they ran with us was an analysis, and within one day and with less than $1,000, they were able to do the equivalent of $24,000 and 2 months of engineering work. The result here was they were able to immediately purchase 2,000 of these units and start selling them. After that, they ran an optimization with us where they took about 2 weeks, and this is a more complex project, about $10,000, and they were able to do more than $60,000 and 4 months worth of engineering. The results of this were obviously more spectacular. They sent this out right to manufacturing once it had been optimized by us, and by the end of next quarter, they expect to have more than 500,000 sales. Our value proposition is simple. We reduce the human intervention in the design cycle, and we can help your engineers come up with better solutions in less cost and with fewer delays. It's this cycle here that we are shortening with our AI-powered analysis and optimization. As I said, companies just usually over-engineer, or another thing I've seen is they'll have two teams, one for design work and another to manage the simulations and the infrastructure. With us, they need half a team and fewer senior level engineers per project. This is another example on the robotics end of things. Osteo Robotics is the name of this company. They cut their concept of prototyping time down significantly, and we helped them see deeper insights into their product than they would have been able to otherwise. This is a case where one of our competitors actually offered their software for free, but we were still more appealing because you can onboard onto our product in about an hour, and said competitor, who I don't think I'm allowed to name, it takes years to learn how to use their software well. We help people make better products, not just save them cost and time. For how it works from a customer's point of view, it's pretty straightforward. Just upload your CAD model, define your goals, and submit your job. The best innovations today are usually just taking different ideas from different fields that happen to be complementary. Our cloud backend is our secret sauce, so to speak. We have a way to put AI in the loop for traditional simulation. You'll often see AI used for pattern matching. Something we did related to this is our automated simulation generation forces boundary conditions methods. I came up with this actually in the process of building the optimization part of the product, just because I realized several customers were willing to pay for this alone. And we also, of course, use AI for generative purposes, modifying part geometry and materials. But the point is, once this is submitted, we have some black magic we do, and then we can simply give customers either an optimized CAD model and or simulation results showing the results of what running a physical experiment would be. They can validate their product completely virtually without any extra effort on their part. Our target market is $4.5 billion, and it's growing very quickly. Within, we have, obviously the larger market is huge, but we're focusing on robotics, drones, aerospace equipment, and parts, and specifically in companies headquartered in North America, Europe, and India. We actually have customers in all three of those regions. We, of course, won't say no to other companies who want to use this. For example, we have one fire safety and security equipment developer, but our marketing is focused, of course, around the needs of our target market because we're not big enough yet to focus on everything. We are also, of course, not the first in this space, but we have a different approach where, I mean, simplicity, we're the easiest to use by far. It takes on average about an hour from signing up to uploading a project to running your first job. We're much more intuitive. We have a workflow-based approach. That isn't completely unique, but the way we have it set up is far more intuitive to someone who's never used design software at all. And I mean, at the moment, we are definitely more cost accessible to parts of the market, which leads directly into our current target customers. Small to medium businesses and startups can make the most benefit out of us right now. Longer term, we will be focusing on enterprise customers, but we're a startup, and if we waited right now for an enterprise customer to join on, we'd probably starve to death. It takes years for them to come to any real decisions. But at the moment, we are, like I said, robots, drones, aerospace parts and equipment. These all have similar work. This isn't completely out of left field. These all have similar workflows despite having different end goals. For example, a drone, of course, would want to be aerodynamically efficient. A robot may want to be resistant to fatigue and thermal effects, but the design the design parts of this will be relatively similar. Because of this, we can serve customers who are making their own products. We can serve outsourced product design shops, and we even have a couple engineering consulting groups who've shown interest in using us. We have several success stories. Due to time constraints, I'm going to just focus on our most impressive one, Right One. Their CEO told us flat out, he no longer feels he's taking risks with his product development, and this is huge. If anyone is interested later, I'm happy to make introductions. These are all reference accounts. Our business model is subscription-based. We have metered pricing effectively for overages. The idea is you have a base subscription and credits, and you buy more if they run out. As I said, when we start getting enterprise customers to join on, we may decide to shift this. We're not married to this model, but this has worked the best for now. Our team is obviously very tech heavy. We have an enormous amount of software, AI, engineering, and even quite a bit of management experience. We also have, we got Scott Harris to join on as our advisor. He co-founded both Onsheet and SolidWorks, two huge players in this market. And he's already made lots of useful connections for us. We're currently looking for someone to help me run the business side operations, marketing, sales, what have you. So if anyone has any ideas, I'm more than happy to hear them later. And we're currently raising a seed round of 1 million in safe and convertible note form, which will give us an 18-month runway. This will help us get to 100 customers by increasing the marketing, advertising, and sales functions of the business. We also hope to service more customers by expanding our product's capabilities. And if all continues to go well, we'll be able to hit 1 million in annual recurring revenue over the course of this upcoming year. In short, we are uniquely positioned to disrupt this industry in a big way, not just with our team, but the technology we've developed. The time is right, and the need has never been greater or more imperative for our current customers, especially. There's increased competition everywhere. Thanks for listening, and I also want to give a big thanks to IDEA, New Chip, and well, everyone for attending.
Hey, Steve, I don't know if you can see us right now, Zach from General Catalyst. I thought this was great and love the space you're in. I was previously at a firm that invested in drone deploy, and so know the drone space fairly well as a result. Can you take us through a little bit of the feedback loop in the product? I just want to understand, how does the AI get better over time? What are the inputs? How do you measure success? Kind of walk us through that, please.
Sure. So over here. So we have an initial training set. I can put this here. Here we go. We have an initial training set of 80 to 90,000 images, and not images, 80 to 90,000 models. And whenever we get new ones, I mean, we're consistently building this up. We're able to train the AI on more of it. I mean, there's really two loops here going. I hope I'm answering your question appropriately, but there's really two specific loops that are going on. There's one for the automated simulation generation, and there's a separate one for the part and geometry optimization.
Sorry, I just want to dig into the actual simulation loop. So how does the simulation understand, or how does it measure the efficacy of what it's creating, and then how does that then feed back into better simulations over time?
Of course. So a successful simulation is easy to tell. If it doesn't work, it will fail out. For what you're probably asking, though, is how do you tell if something is going to probably work well or take slower to run?
Yep.
A successful run will have a certain amount of certain types of boundary conditions applied, certain methods in running, so on and so forth. We have a bunch of classification going on where, I mean, for aerospace, for example, you can have things like wind tunnels. You can have more of a fatigue-based one, just the pure fluid structure interaction. It stopped me from using too many. I start going deep in. I mean, I started as an engineer, so this is what I do. But you have a bunch of different ways to classify this, and each one of those will have a different set of boundary conditions that works better, and even different methods. And of course, within each one, there's a whole bunch of different things that happen as well. So the more successful runs we have of a certain kind, the more the AI gradually learns to it learns which values work better for which types of problems. So the inputs to this are just the CAD model and all the design goals and environment conditions. So it learns to see which goals and environment conditions lead to better results with different methods used.
Makes sense. Thanks.
Hi, Steve. Great job.
Hey.
Some more questions about the model. Okay, so I was wondering if you could talk me through how your simulation accounts for manufacturing methods, because a design that's good for one method of production might not be good for another, and especially since your main, maybe a primary value prop here is that you save design teams time, different manufacturing methods have different lead times associated with them. So do you take that into consideration?
At the moment, that's more of a custom edition. It's the equivalent of a beta feature, just because you're completely correct. Because also locale will matter. So several of our customers, One, for example, is right around Boston. And so Hopper, for example, that's one of our other reference accounts. They're down in Louisiana, I believe. And making their parts is completely different. One is ordering from overseas, which means that, to be honest, there's going to be a delay time no matter what they do. They're also more amenable to using, for example, 3D printed parts, which has its own host of issues as well. When we use a bunch of DC GANs to suggest different configurations of geometry, those are run through, it's called a CAM system to determine if they're manufacturable, because, like you said, that is a big piece of this. Can't make it in real life. It doesn't really matter how much cool stuff you come up with in a computer. So.
To make sure I'm following, if your CAM suggests a part is manufacturable via one method, could your model also suggest a second design that's manufacturable via a different method, and the customer selects between the two, or does your model make a recommendation and just produce one outcome? One outcome, because for each part we have in the goal and material and geometry options you're allowed to set in the very beginning. You have to choose one method of manufacturing and one type of goal. Great, thank you.
It's Kyle from Glasswing. I was in IDEA, so we have met previously.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm very excited about kind of what this has become. I'd love to hear about this customer onboarding process. A lot of people selling into this space have some pretty brutal lead times in terms of before they generate revenue. So how are you able to achieve these faster customer onboardings? Because that's very exciting.
Yeah. So, the onboarding itself is that refers to the way I was using it, at least, is referring to after they've actually purchased. It's just on the first, they'll usually get on a call. Me or someone on the team will sort of walk them through, and pretty quickly they're able to just start something up. In terms of actual sales cycle, it's a little bit of a more complex answer. So I'll stay simple to begin. Basically, it takes for the different kinds of, because we have really a couple different kinds of customers. We'll have some using more analysis, some using optimization. The professional license, which is most of our analysis customers use this, that takes anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks. There may be a delay, like someone will hear about us, and then when they start up their product development, that's when they really want to use us, and that's when their subscription starts. In other cases, I mean, my favorite call was with someone who had already heard about us and signed up on the call. That was pretty neat. To really answer your question, though, anywhere from 1 to 4 weeks with our current base of customers. Enterprise tend to take anywhere from 3 to 12 months or longer.
Those are always great calls. Kind of thinking about the onboarding element, is there any custom training that has to occur for individual customers, or if you're diving perhaps, when you add a new product or a new class of products that you want to optimize for, what type of custom training has to occur?
Sure. Well, one nice thing we found is, well, let me answer your first part of that. Very little custom training to anyone who's familiar with the computer. There've been a couple people who didn't even know how to build CAD. So they had someone on their team, someone separate from them, doing this, and then they had to run it. So with them, there was usually 1 to 2 calls to really walk them through the process. For when we add something new, we've actually had a couple cases already where a beta feature someone asked for, or rather someone asked for a feature, and then we investigated. Turns out, yeah, many people have this need. That then turned into a beta feature. That then, of course, we have to work with the people. There's a reason we call it a beta feature. So there is, of course, 1 or 2 calls for that. For something that has been ironed out enough, usually at most maybe a short email, or maybe one 15-minute call to really train their engineering team to use.
Funny enough, I actually meant the training of the model. So actually thinking about the changing of the, so training the AI as much as training the customer, I'd be curious about.
No, my bad.
No, that's completely unclear.
Yeah. So for the actual model, it really depends. We're not an AWS shop, but we heavily use AWS because they were nice enough to give us a truly staggering amount of credits. So we using GPU models, it takes maybe a couple hours to really train up the model on the entire data set that we have at the moment. It's later on we will presumably be moving into more of a live type system, but anywhere from hours, I could see it later on perhaps taking days if we do it sort of a one-off type thing. But it really depends. It also depends if some of the new information is worth doing a continuous training on versus doing a sort of a staggered step model.
Super helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve, last question. What is your IP, if you have any, on the optimizations you're doing?
Sure. We a lot of this is just trade secrets. Some we filed a patent. We're hoping to get that with it's a provisional patent, so within the next 6 to 12 months. But at the moment, we decided that it's mostly just worth keeping things as trade secrets, because any information we release, these things are notoriously difficult to protect. So just keeping everything very close to the chest.
And now to go down the line, starting with Kyle. Please answer the question, would you be interested in investing? And we'll move down the line from here.
Yeah, I mean, Steve, I think we need to find a time to reconnect, because this is something really interesting to me. In general, like Glasswing, I've been spending some time on how do you make some of these very expensive workers more efficient, so whether they be engineers or computer scientists or the such. And I think you're getting at that really successfully. So I have you on LinkedIn, but I'll ping you my cell number and we can set up a time.
Woo!
Yeah, similarly, Steve, I love what you talked to us about today. I know from Drone Deploy the real challenge folks face here, and I also spent time working at a company called Flexport, who you might know in the freight forwarding space, and so got real exposure to supply chain and manufacturing there too. So I love the space, I love the product you've built, and I want us to find some time to chat about it.
Hey, Steve, I'm going to glob on the love here. I spent 5 years as a mechanical design engineer. I've lived this problem. I see what a difference the right tool can make, even if it's a SolidWorks plugin. And so I think you've identified a real pain point and have a very compelling solution. I'd love to have a second meeting.
Yeah, likewise, Steve. Great hearing about how much progress you've made in the last couple of years, and would love to have a second conversation.
So, 4 follow-on conversations after 1 pitch. Thank you so much to our investors, and now we'll take an interim. Thank you to Steve. We have 1 more pitch next.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Alrighty, let's get started with the last pitch. If you're just joining us or you've been here all night, you know that this is NEXPITCH, particularly the seed pitch portion of NEXPITCH, where ventures get to ask anywhere from $500,000 to $2 million in investment. Last up, we have Maddie, Rifkin, and Mount. For Mount, I'd like to tell a personal story of why I relate so heavily with this business. So, back in April of 2020, my good friend Dennis and I, who's here tonight, went to Mexico. And in Mexico, the Airbnb situation is complex, to say the least. We got to Mexico, went into our Airbnb, and very quickly realized that we're not going to be able to get around the community, the city, any part of Mexico without transportation. So where did we look? We looked at buses, taxis, Ubers, which aren't heavily populated over there, and lastly, we landed on ATVs. We realized that ATVs were the best way to go around Mexico, but when looking to find ways to source them, we couldn't find a viable solution. So who did we go to? Our Airbnb host, who connected us directly with ATVs to get around Mexico. That small interaction of our host introducing us to a local amenity to help us further enjoy our experience is the foundation of what Mount does. This small interaction, it goes unnoticed everywhere across the world and poses a massive opportunity in the market for someone to make an impact. Maddie believes she's the person to do it. So without further ado, please help me welcome Maddie Rifkin of Mount.
Thanks for sticking it through to the last pitch. As Luca said, I'm the CEO and founder of Mount, and we are a platform that allows you to rent anything at any time to anyone. Now, I know that's a really broad statement, so where we're starting is in the Airbnb market, and the fact that amenity-based revenue does not really exist. Hosts make 99% of their revenue directly from bookings, which means they don't have the opportunity to capitalize on the guest when they're staying at that property. There's no optional bike rental, scooter rental, golf cart rental. Chances are you're gonna have to go down to the next, probably a mile, and go to that bike rental shop to get what you need. But on the flip side, 83% of travelers are actively paying for these experiences. They want more than just a place to stay. So there's a massive disconnect, and what it looks like is $9.2 billion of revenue being left on the table that Airbnb hosts simply cannot access. So what does Mount do? We give them the ability to access that revenue. We can take any toy in your garage, a bike, a scooter, golf cart, kayak, paddleboard, you name it, and we turn it into a rentable amenity. That way, when the guest shows up at your property, they have the Mount app, and they can see anything they could possibly rent, how much it's gonna cost, what they can do with it, and have that great experience, all self-service. Now, why Mount is so unique is because we make offering amenities easy. First of all, we have a transactional app, so all payment takes place through Mount, which means, as an Airbnb host, you do not have to go chase your guest down and find out what their Venmo is. Second, we have an insurance policy. This is a big reason why Airbnb hosts don't currently do this. Our policy covers Mount, it covers the host, and it covers the guest who's renting the amenity in case anyone gets hurt. So you have a peace of mind when you're listing that amenity. Last, we have GPS tracking. This is another big barrier as to why they aren't doing it right now. If every asset on the Mount platform is currently GPS tracked, and that way the host knows exactly where their amenity is at all times. Now, the Airbnb market is massive, but when we look at Mount's take, $1.3 billion, that's the current people that want to offer amenities and the properties and geographical locations that are prime for these type of amenities. So our business model is simple. We make money two ways. We have first our annual subscription. We charge $15 a month for anyone who's listing an asset, and that's based per asset. Second, we take a rental fee. So every rental that's facilitated on the Mount platform, we take 10 to 20%, depending on how big the asset is. A golf cart makes us more money. Now, the biggest objection we currently get is the fact that the Airbnb market is massive. There's hosts literally everywhere in the world. Now, how on earth are we going to find them all and hunt them down? Well, I'm here to tell you we found out how to aggregate the market, and it's through strategic partners. The first are these masterclass teachers. They've self-proclaimed themselves experts, partly because they make upwards of $20 million in revenue every year off of their Airbnb listings. And they go out and teach hundreds of thousands of hosts how to do what they're doing. We got in contact with one, and we posted in his Facebook group. In an hour, we got 207 hosts responding back that they want to list amenities and converted them to wait on our wait list until we were ready to deploy. Second is our scalable go-to-market strategy. It is with property management software companies. Now, 95% of Airbnb companies are using a third-party software to manage their property. We created a vision board of the top 5 we wanted to integrate with that are focused on the guest experience. And at the top of our list is a company called Operto. They're massive in the space. They've been around for years. They not only work in the short-term rental space, but hotels and boutique hotels. And we're like, if we get them, Mount will have a placehold in this industry. Well, I met their CEO 3 weeks ago, and I was like, oh my God, you're on my vision board. Like, I want to meet you. And I told him what we did. He was like, oh my gosh, you're never going to believe this. You're on our vision board. And he was like, we want to offer amenity rentals, and we have no idea how. And he showed me his mocked-up app that had a scooter rental. Needless to say, that integration has started. It's going live in Q1, and we will get instant access to 150,000 Airbnb hosts who, at a click of a button, can add on a Mount amenity. And not only, we're not stopping there, don't worry. We're going into all aspects of private property, because as we learned, every piece of private property wants a guest experience or a tenant experience, but doesn't know how to offer it, and Mount does. So we're going into office, multifamily, retail, hospitality, you name it, Mount will be there. Now, Mount is unique because of our team. We come both from the micro-mobility world as well as the hospitality world. Myself included was working at Jumpbird, Uber, Lyft, Lime, you name it. I was consulting on their locks. We also have on our team the CEO of Hostfully, as well as the previous market manager of Airbnb for both Canada and the United States. And that guy also started 3 companies, all very successful to this day. Now, our raise is currently open. We have very limited room left, so if you want to talk, happy to. But that's Mount. Thank you so much. Oh, sorry, Lucas.
Hey, Maddie.
Hi,
I remember when this was a lock.
I know, me too, me too.
Oh my gosh. Well, first I have to say this was one of the most emotional pitch, because when I joined Idea, this was a lock, and now it's this very extremely thought out platform. I guess one question I have is, who's doing this? So what's the team look like? Because it sounds like there are a lot of, it sounds like you're getting a lot of inbound opportunity. A lot of people have you on their vision board. How do you prioritize for the best customer experience and kind of the best go-to-market motion?
Yeah, so our platform's live. It's working. We have amenities listed. So basically right now we're working on that API integration. Rashab up there is our CTO. So that's our priority right now. And so yeah, we're making revenue and such, but the priority is that API for integration.
And how about the types of properties, the types of assets, where do you want to start with?
Yeah, we've been working with Airbnb hosts for the last 7 months now, 14 different states. And so we have anywhere from a luxury host who has a $5 million property down to your single apartment complex. So we've kind of figured out where it works, where it doesn't. The luxury ones, not so much, because your guest is like a baseball player who shows up with a limousine. He doesn't need a scooter. So that sweet spot is the individual owner, someone who owns 1 to 5 units, really is focused on the guest experience. And as it happens, those 5 software companies are focused on that individual owner.
It's awesome. Yeah. Super thoughtful.
Thank you.
What portion of these folks already have amenities they can want to rent out? And how do you think about sort of growing that part of the pie over time?
So it's a 50-50 split right now. We have hosts who want to purchase scooters and electric bikes, and we help them do that. But actually, majority of people have this stuff in their garage, and they just didn't know they had a use for it until now. I mean, personally, there's 5 bikes in my garage I've never used. So if I could be, a host on our platform, I would. So I think this has the capability to be like anyone in the world, not an Airbnb host.
And one more thought, when you think about sort of the folks on your vision board who are enterprise users in many respects, what do you have to build for them that's different than what you have to build for the 1 to 5 unit owner who's sort of the SMB use case?
So it just makes their life easier. The 1 to 5 Airbnb owner can sign up on our website right now and list an amenity, but since they're already using Operto, and it's a big dashboard they use, there's a little mount box that'll be there. It says, hey, we are now compatible. You can upload your data here instead of using our platform. So it just makes their life easier, but you can use it from either.
And when you think about like Operto or whomever, do you think about moving into their enterprise clients too, or think about moving into the sort of larger folks for them?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
So
hotels.
what do you have to build to do that?
Oh, sorry, it's all the same. Nothing changes. Yeah. Yeah.
My turn. Maddie, that was just delightful. Thank you for a great pitch. I had a question about the IoT device itself. So it, I assume, does locking and unlocking?
No, so this IoT device is just a GPS tracker.
Okay.
It's like the size of a tile device. Sticky adhesive on the back. When you sign up to list your amenity, you get sent one. And then you can stick it on, and then it's just running GPS for us.
Okay, so if I had a bike in my garage, what's to stop someone from just biking away on it?
Yeah, so typically at an Airbnb, you have some infrastructure already. So you probably have a cable lock on there, and you just hook that up to the app. So like when you scan the QR code on your bike through the Mount app, it'll give you the code to unlock it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you expect to onboard, not on the rental supply side, but on the amenity supply side, like businesses that would have a fleet of these things?
Absolutely, yeah. Actually, our pilot that just went live here in Cambridge, in Somerville, is with a massive real estate holding company. So they do Greentown Labs and all the other, they own like 3 blocks there. So they put in amenities of scooters and docking stations that Mount runs their system for them and that their tenants rent.
Okay, looking ahead like 5 to 10 years, I imagine that there's a huge opportunity to incentivize property owners to finance and buy new amenities.
Absolutely.
How are you thinking about that?
So they currently do that. Mount actually doesn't purchase anything because we came from that world of micromobility and saw firsthand how capital intensive Lime was. We're like, we're not doing that again. So we have a few financing options for our customers right now, but most of the time they're paying for the asset and then it pays itself back within max 6 months, which is a pretty accelerated payback schedule as opposed to your typical amenity that you're paying for a hotel or something. It's like a 12 to 18 month payback schedule. So it makes the sale pretty easy for us.
Are you guys underwriting that financing or are you referring?
No, we refer. Yeah, just through our partnerships.
Okay, and do you capture some of that margin?
We do, yeah. It's not too big right now, but we are working towards making that a significant revenue stream.
Finance more golf carts.
Yeah, exactly.
Would you guys think about raising a credit vehicle to do the financing yourself?
Sorry, a what?
Would you think about raising a credit vehicle to do the financing yourself?
Yes. I think we might eventually get there, but right now our partners are pretty good at it, and we can focus on our customer experience, which I think for us is going to be big because this growth can be quick, and we need to be ready for scale. So I think we're going to focus on this and let our partners do what they're better at, which is the leasing.
How much is left in the safe?
There's about 600,000 left, so not too much.
It's painful to hear.
How are you thinking about liability? If I crash my golf cart, what's that process like reporting back to the host? How are you facilitating it?
Yes, so we operate similar to like a Turo. If you've rented a car through that platform, Airbnb is simple. We created a custom insurance policy for these type of amenity rentals. So there's a few layers of defense. The first is our terms and conditions sheet you're signing, which is your typical, you're gonna wear a helmet, you're not gonna ride under the influence of anything. And so that's the first layer, which is actually where most of the injuries occur. If it's something where it was reckless driving, or maybe it just wasn't your fault, that's when the insurance policy kicks in. So it's a $2 million general liability policy. It'll cover your hospital stay if you're injured in any way. And the host is kind of brought under an umbrella as well. So all parties involved are covered.
If I'm the host and you crash my golf cart.
Oh, like that type of liability for your golf cart. Yeah, typically they already have that because a golf cart is rather expensive. So $20,000, you're going to have that insurance policy. For a cruiser bike that's $100, you're probably just going to write that off as, oh, sorry. Yeah.
And in terms of this piece of hardware, is this relatively freely available technology or something proprietary, or what's the cost associated with that?
Yep, we did not proprietary to Mount because what we found during the pandemic is that the supply chain for everything got disrupted, and we didn't want to be reliant on one IoT device because then our whole operation would go down. So our software platform is what makes us unique, and the fact that we can integrate with any IoT out there. So we work with one right now because it's great. It's about $70, but if they happen to go down, we can just pick the next one up.
I did hear that about supply chain.
Yep.
I think that's a smart approach.
Great.
Cool.
So, thank you all so much for listening to that. That was phenomenal. Now, let's talk about investment and start with Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Maddie, I'm kind of blown away. Just, I think it's amazing kind of what you've gone off and done. So I'd love to chat. I think as Zach would express, I wish there was more money left.
You might have to catch us on our next round.
Absolutely.
We can be a little more creative than that. Yeah, I tipped my hand earlier, but I was blown away. Super interested. In fact, I'd like to talk to you right after this to see what we can do about the remainder that's left.
Okay, sounds good.
Great job, Maddie.
Thank you.
I echo the sentiment. You have a very exciting future ahead of you for Mount, and I would be psyched to keep the conversation going.
Thanks.
Yeah, same thing. I remember when it was just a lock, and I know we've talked with for the last couple of years, but we'll definitely continue the conversation.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys. This is great.
I'm going to say one thing. I'm going to go out a limb here. Zach, if you want to start that conversation, I think we'd all love to hear. I'll leave it up to you.
Yeah, well, we'll do that one-on-one.
It's perfect.
Fair.
You
Okay.
can't show them all the cards.
Exactly. Well, thank you, Maddie. That was phenomenal. And clearly from our investors, I think they think the same. So that just about does it. Thank you all so much for coming tonight. This wouldn't be possible without any of you here, including our team. Especially want to give a massive shout out to our budget and events coordinator, Susan Greeley, the woman behind the scenes, the legend, the mastermind behind all of this. Please give your hands up for Susan, and thank you all. Have a good night.